This just in, what a finish between Vanderbilt and Texas. Onside kick with just over 30 seconds left to go. Brock Taylor's effort goes down like this. Worth another look down the sideline, out of bounds. And Texas, which held a 31-10 lead in the third quarter, ends up holding on to beat the Commodores 34-31. Both Diego Pavia and Arch Manning threw for more than 300 yards and 3 touchdowns on the day. Hey there, folks. Welcome to College Football Postgame. I'm Tommy Tran with Mackenzie Brooks and Danny Kanell. Now, we all love ourselves a little bit of the action, Danny, and this was a classic where you got it and when you got it. Anywhere between 2.5 and 3.5 in this game, and it lands on 3.
I mean, of course it did. And I really did feel, we talked about in the pregame show, I said I liked it Texas if you're laying 2.5, and I liked Vanderbilt if you were getting 3.5 with the Commodores. So ultimately it landed right there, and it does show you the margins are so tight there. But I will say that was one that I think both of these teams are probably going to feel a little bit like they left something on the field. I think Texas is going to feel like, man, we dodged an absolute disaster because they were in much more control of that game than I think the final score indicated. And if you're Vanderbilt, you have to be thinking, man, we were this close. I mean, that ball stays in bounds on that onside kick. They're able to get it. You almost feel like it was inevitable. They were going to score, possibly go to overtime. So they have to be kicking themselves as well, just thinking what an opportunity that was wasted there at the end of that game. But what a fun finish. And Texas, thankfully, for their playoff hopes, held on to a thread.
That's what it is. They're going to find a way in here. And it's going to be really frustrating because they can even do it probably as a 9-3 team. Like if you're going 2-1 in those 3 top 10 games, you now already have one under your belt. You split Texas A&M and Georgia. You hope maybe Miami fumbles, maybe loses this game. That ruins their at-large bid. Now we're only getting one ACC team. Like if you see other things happen, you could so see a 5th SEC team, and you could so see it be Texas, even if they go 9-3, but they've put themselves in a fabulous situation now. Now they are way closer to a coin flip to make it in at 42% than they were before this game. They were sitting around 26%.
As we're taking a look at Texas at home against AP top 10 teams. Again, if we get a second, guys, let's go back to that schedule graphic again, talking about what the Longhorns have the rest of the way. Danny, again, if in theory Texas splits that Georgia, Texas A&M, and they go 9-3, do you think they're deserving of going to the college football playoff?
No, I don't, but I think they might get in. Like at what point, like I give them credit, and I actually think they're going to get a lot of love for playing Ohio State closer than anybody else has played Ohio State this year. But do we just forget that they lost to Florida in that game? Like that is a bad loss against a Florida team who just fired their coach. I don't think they're going to beat Georgia in Athens. So I think what makes this really interesting is it's going to come down to Texas A&M, a rivalry game which these two programs hate each other. And you know there is nothing more. Because if they're 9-3 going into that game, then if they want to be even considered in the conversation, they have to be at A&M. But that would be a huge win. And then there becomes some recency bias. If the committee goes in to that, a couple weeks later, just a week later from that game, they might have watched that and been like, if Texas beats Texas A&M, ooh, they do look like a playoff point at this time. So I think Texas, as much as I disagree with them getting in at 9-3, I do think they will be in that discussion. And I do think, especially if we want to encourage scheduling tough non-conference opponents, that might be taken into consideration and say, rather than Texas having scheduled a directional school where they would have won by 4 touchdowns, how about we give them credit for scheduling Ohio State, even though they lost? I think that's one thing that could actually work in Texas' favor.
And people will talk about that more than the multiple SEC games where they're barely winning or winning in overtime. Like the margin of victory in conference has not been great by any means, but us saying, oh yeah, they had a quote unquote looking back good loss against Ohio State might be helping them. But back to the Vandy side too. They're not out of this at all.
That's what
by
I was
any
gonna say.
means.
Okay.
So, which was interesting when we look at the numbers in the beginning of the week with a win, with a loss. Vandy was at 33%, and then with a loss, they only dropped to 30. So it was almost like we anticipated this to be a loss, but again, they can still run the table after this. Obviously going to Tennessee at the end of the season, not the easiest game, but definitely a winnable game. So now it just becomes win or go home for Vandy, but that doesn't seem like the most impossible situation. I think the reason we give them a 30% chance to make it because they have a 30% chance to win out.
And that, so then I think we can agree, like a 3-loss Vanderbilt team is out.
Correct.
A Tennessee 3-loss team is out, which makes that final game of the season Tennessee versus Vanderbilt a play-in, play-out type of game for both of those programs.
There's a few SEC teams where 10-2 gets you in. There's a few SEC teams where a 9-3 could get you in depending on your schedule. Like an Ole Miss, their schedule's too easy to afford that. A Georgia, a Bama, those are teams that could make it in at 9-3. Same with Texas. But to your point, maybe they should be rewarding teams for scheduling hard out of conference.
Okay, that's a look at both Vanderbilt and Texas, with the Longhorns now sitting at about 42% to make the college football playoff after their win over the Commodores in this ranked-on-ranked matchup. Guys, certainly appreciate it. Great analysis on this game, and of course, we'll keep you dialed in here on CBS Sports HQ. There it is, Texas at home again. Once again, AP top 10 teams under Steve Sarkisian. This was a game in which the Longhorns could have won and boat raced Vandy. The Commodores scored 21 points in the fourth quarter, 238 total yards to make it close, but in the end, Longhorns win.